Let's get started. What's up, people? It's 2021, and guess what? We have a new episode of The Milpa Show. So welcome to everybody. Hopefully you're doing well. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to my co-host, Bernie Gomez.
Yo, what's
for
up,
a little bit
yo?
more.
Aquí estoy, Bernie Gomez, just joining these amazing folks, give a quick introduction. Aquí tenemos a Melvin Red Martinez, a 2019 to 2020 Next Generation Fellow. Here we have también Renée Menard, a Communications and Policy Analyst at Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice, CJCJ, and our very own John Pineda, Deputy Director at MILPA Collective. And everybody, wave, say what's up.
Welcome to our guest. So
everybody, go ahead.
Welcome, bienvenido. So we want to get it started with doing a little round of check-ins. So what is it that you look forward to in 2021? It could be general, it could be specific, anything that you're excited about. Feel free to take it away, Red.
Something I look forward to. I just graduated, so I'm really looking forward to my own time of just reading. I started a job as a youth organizer, so I'll be working with the youth and getting ideas from them and how do we look at public safety. And my organization is the Riverside Justice Table, so it's also focusing on DA accountability. And so getting youth involved that's also been impacted by the system and seeing ideas that they have on DA accountability and public safety.
Beautiful. Renée.
Yeah, I feel like one of the few good things 2020 gave me, at least, was having more chances to just connect with family and friends regardless of where they're at. So I live up in San Francisco, but my family's down in LA, and it's given me a lot more opportunities to just connect a little bit more with parents, with siblings, regardless of geography. So I'm excited for that to continue. One of the only things I don't want to leave behind in last year. And one thing I'm really excited about too is just pursuing state legislation that's going to be supporting youth in their communities through programs that aren't run by probation or law enforcement. And so I'm part of a reform effort to change a state grant program that's going to do a lot of that. And of course, I'm excited about NGF.
Yeah, and I'll take that as my cue to introduce myself as well. Buenas tardes, everybody out there, or buenos dias, whatever time you're going to be listening to this at. Like they said, John Pineda, co-founder, deputy director of MILPA. And one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is, we like to do a lot of reading. We like to do a lot of investment in ourselves spiritually and culturally. And I'm reminded of this prophecy of the eagle and the condor, right? And it talks about this restoration and a regeneration of the earth, and an indigenizing of Western ways, so I really think about it as that whole concept of decolonizing and anti-colonial practices. I also look forward to continuing the pursuit of justice, pursuing truth, palabra, healing, and reparation.
Yeah, gracias for that, and, that's a perfect segue to what I was thinking, it's the continued cultivation of my indigeneity, right, of my cultural identity. And this is one thing that I'm looking forward to, being part of the MILPA Collective, to really engage that part, continue to grow with my palabra, walking a straight line of integrity, of compassion and love, and at the same time of resistance, and always, looking forward to uplifting the community and the voices that are not heard. I know I was one of those voices that wasn't heard for a long time, stuck in a cycle, of harm, of self-harm. And that's, we see in 2020, that exacerbated a lot of families, and social ills, So for me, it's, hey, the fight continues, they don't stop, the movement's here, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, y'all. And I will say that aside from continuing to work with MILPA and growing as a professional and just trying to be a better person every day, right? The same that I would want to be treated with love, dignity, and respect from other people. It's how do I treat myself in those ways, right? It could be really easy to get caught up in the inner monologue of whatever negativity. And so just continuing to look forward to treating myself with positivity, and also creating space and time for art and creativity. It's really important for me to be able to express myself through music, through dance, and through being able to just create and just make something out of nothing, right? That's always really fun for me. So thank you all for this space and time, and shout out to all of you for the work that you're doing, and for just your energy and your time. So with that, I'll pass it back to my co-host Bernie for the first question.
Yeah, so and this question is for it's gonna go around. We're gonna start with Mr. Red Martinez, right? So what brought you to the movement, and tell us a little bit about your organization and your responsibilities there.
What brought me to the movement, I think it really started with like my brother educating me on like certain things. He was first, like he was really into graffiti, and he was really into just art, like graffiti as an art. He used to kind of like tag as like a gangbanger, like the three letters, three initials, and then he soon more got into an art of like throwing up heavens and throw ups and just all that. So he got caught, and then after that, he like it's a lot of like what my brother's story is. Like he converted to Islam, he educated himself, and that made me like want to question and like learn a lot of things. And I grew up in like a very privileged area, and I was like very thankful of that. But I also knew that like like even though with my parents like hard work and dedication, like there was also some luck because not everyone was there with us. And so I really like did wanted to like work on that. And and then I also like fucked up and I got like a criminal conviction. And so that mostly brought me to the abolitionist movement. And thinking of like the jail system, I saw like so many homies that one homie, Big Boy, he was telling me a story about how he was already like diagnosed with ADHD, and then the trauma that was brought into him through going through adult system, going through the juvenile hall. He was also like soon diagnosed with PTSD, and also what was it called, multiple personality disorder. And it like that, it's like what the system created. And it was like it wasn't about like health, it wasn't about like recuperating or restoring like people's like dignity, but it was just about like putting them away in something somewhere else, or like killing them even. So I've been, since then, like just tied more into the abolitionist movement. First and foremost, I'm a big supporter of like all like minorities, working class people, and I try to like do my best to keep evolving and keep doing my best every day. And so right now, I'm actually a youth organizer with Riverside Justice Table. We're focusing on DA accountability, like I said before, and just re-envisioning public safety, which is exactly what I learned from NGF, what public safety was. I didn't even know that was like a thing that the government talked about. Like I didn't know it was like written in those terms. I thought it was just like policing and I don't know, but or like state military policing. But yeah, that's what brought me here. I'm not sure if I got all that in the question.
Yeah, no, gracias for sharing. It's a beautiful theme, to become consciously aware of what's going on. That critical analysis and thinking. And I was right there with you. It's like, what was public safety? I thought it was just the public being safe. It's like so. So this is what's so badass about community scholarship, right? And barrio scholarship, and all in those things. Renee, you want to go ahead and give it a shot?
Yeah. Well, you guys touched on some stuff that really resonates with me. When it comes to how I came to the movement, I think for me, not being touched by the justice system myself or within my family, it took some time to have that critical lens through which I could see through. And that for me came from when I'm as I said, I'm a California native, but I went out to Chicago when I went off to school. And there's something, I think there's a lot of wisdom to be gained in like zooming out, you know, being completely taken out of context. And all of a sudden you're able to see the systemic workings in a new community. You know, for me, it was when I was living in Chicago and seeing race at the forefront in a way that I had been blind to before, and seeing, you know, segregation and its legacy on the communities I was working in. So that was something that I think you can't unknow something once you know it. So once I saw that, you know, there, my understanding sort of expanded out, it rippled out. And so I also became involved in the movement kind of more from an education standpoint. So I worked with children, and in particular, I was working in a program trying to minimize the literacy gap, the reading and literacy gap between affluent children and children that don't have those same resources. And it's a massive divide, you know, that you can see at age 2 or 3. And I think once I got involved in that early childhood education point, that was an entryway for me to really see just how many things need to change from, you know, from the very beginning. And it got me interested in the flip side. You know, I felt a sense of urgency, recognizing like, yes, we got to be investing in our kids and our babies, but we also, I don't want to wait 100 years to just see things, you know, roll over. I felt a sense of urgency to get involved with, you know, the public defense out in Chicago, and to become more involved in some prison advocacy groups. And then that brought me back to California, fortunately. So now I work at the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice, and I just think it's a complete sweet spot for what I needed to learn and where I'm at now, with my continued, you know, growth as a communications and policy analyst and whatever is to come. CJCJ is an organization that does direct services primarily. So a lot of services that are focused on supporting youth on probation, giving alternative sentences to mothers so that they don't have to go into an incarcerative setting, you know, helping people during reentry. And then we have a smaller portion of our team is our policy team. So I oftentimes feel torn between direct service and policy, recognizing, you know, they're kind of intertwined. You can't just focus on fighting every fire without focusing on where the fire is coming from. But I feel like I'm kind of getting to be at a crossroads there with both. So on my team, we focus on state level legislation a lot. I do a lot of work that in a normal year would take me up to Sacramento to advocate for legislation that reduces incarceration, that builds up community alternatives and community supports for youth and adults in the system. Really anything that focuses on moving away from incarceration, and our state and our country's reliance on it is where I'm focused. But sometimes that takes me at the local level. Oftentimes it takes me into research reports and trying to get the word out to media outlets as well. So I really like getting to kind of see these inner workings with our legislation and our lawmakers, alongside just changing, you know, what the public knows, and giving, you know, people more broadly that sense of understanding.
John?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. I was like, man, am I going to wait for the John, or should I just jump in? But yeah, so I could go down the rabbit hole of all the experiences and all of the things that I feel contributed to me being involved in, you know, what we call the movement, and what folks refer to as the movement, right? This pursuit of justice, pursuit of whatever it may be that people are organizing for, right? And moving towards. I will say some justice involvement, you know, even like as a youth, having your high school shut down because things that are happening, you know, and kind of going at it with the police, going at it with the educators, and You know, it's all intense, and you see the viciousness with which they approach the communities at times, right? And there's no discernment as to whether or not they're women, children, elderly people. You're all getting it, right? And because this is what's best for you. And continuing to see throughout my life that what we refer to as the systems, or these systems that collaborate and corroborate with each other, uh, really think that at times they know what's best for us, right? I know how to raise your kids. I know what you need. I know what your community needs, while at the same time still standing on our necks and not allowing us to breathe or even vocalize what it is that we truly feel that we need. And then when we vocalize what it is that what we need, you know, you're kind of greeted with that swift response once again, and or judgment and stigmatization. So all those things contributed, but to be more specific, you know, when I came home, one of these times I actually figured, you know, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to try to do things to try to break that cycle of atrocities that were continuing to be inflicted upon our people, right? That we continue to see, that I continued to experience. And there's only so many times that you could say, man, that ain't right, before you have to do something to try to make it right. You know, so I'm just figuring like we got to do something to make things right. And just seeing as I'm going through the educational system and elevated in that, I was on the fast track to becoming a professor. But seeing the obstacles and the barriers that would continue to be placed in front of our people, even in that institution of higher education, really made me feel like, man, we have to create something that's for the people and built by the people, that really meets them where they're at and allows us to have like this incubator or think tank, and that also sparks action, right? Because you could theorize and you could philosophize all you want, right? But you have to have some action to back that up. So we started, you know, I met your brother Juan, you know, and shared some stories with each other, and it kind of felt like, you know, two paths of different friends, you know, meeting. And that's the way I kind of like owned that. It felt like my best friend was coming back to me in another form, right? So I was like, man, and we were talking the same language, and it's like, what do we do for the people, you know, the brothers and sisters that keep coming home and keep getting snatched up? There's way more people that are way smarter than me, and they just can't get a break. So we just started organizing amongst ourselves and having conversation about things we've experienced, you know, and how that impacted our ability to um, cooperate and function within society, within the community, within our households, and even interact with the systems, right? And at this point in time, it was in the wake of like 4 or 5 officer involved shootings. And we were continuing to see brown people being mowed down by the police. And we just couldn't take it. So people just started hitting the streets and advocating for change, for accountability. And, you know, at times when you shake the bottle up so much and you start to, you know, pressure is going to come out. So that's kind of what it looked like, but also at the same time, understanding that we needed to heal ourselves and make space for the community. So all that to say, I kind of stumbled into the movement, but was actually like kind of pushed into it by the things that I saw and the things that we collectively experienced.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, and just appreciate all the sacrifice that you've put into, along with many other people, into building the MILPA, and being able to create that something for ourselves that is primarily for people that have been formerly incarcerated, system impacted, but generally for la gente that typically don't have any other space. Like even within higher education, I know that one of our MILPA interns goes to Yale, and they have said that even then it's like, man, it's, you can see that the not belonging, the not like the having to question the system and create a collective for the people, right? So I definitely appreciate that. And so this next question is mainly for you, Renee and John, whoever would like to take it. What is the Next Generation Fellowship? And if you could tell us a little bit more about, I know that the application period is open until Sunday, January 31st. And so it's open right now, people could apply. And so Renee, if you would like to tell us a little bit more.
Definitely. So the Next Generation Fellowship is a program that's meant to provide leadership development and policy advocacy training for people who have been impacted by the justice system. So folks who have been formerly incarcerated, have, you know, experienced some other form of contact, or who have a loved one who has experienced involvement in the justice system. We wanted to create a chance for folks to come together, emerging leaders to come together in a space that is really centered on being non-competitive. You can kind of get away from some of the more intense kind of spaces that we oftentimes have to be in, where you're going up against government officials or other leaders that might not understand or have the same point of connection. And this is really a space to develop. So 15 emerging leaders get selected each year. CJCJ and MILPA have been working on it together for a few years now. 2021 is our fourth NGF cohort. And so this year is going to be a little different because everything's going to be virtual, but it will function the way that it has previously. So fellows, free of charge, and in fact, actually get supported through the program, get to participate in 3 separate sessions, to each of them being 2 days long, where they get trained on how does a bill, become law? What is public safety? Like Red said, what are the ways that these issues get talked about by our state and local leaders? And really, how can we engage, and how can we engage collaboratively? So it's both a training where you're going to get tangible skills coming out of it, but it's also a space for cultural healing and for community building, recognizing that, there's all of the technical knowledge that can get built up, but you also need to get built up yourself. You need to have space to grow and be in community. And so NGF is, a program that we hope provides that. So like you said, it's the application is open until Sunday, January 31st. And that's until like the very end. You could send it in at 11:59 at night. But that, will give people the chance to apply and hopefully be part of our 2021 cohort.
Yeah, and shout out to our prior co-host of the Milpa show, Arturo Velas Munoz. He's one of the past fellows. Our very own Iram Coronado also is a past fellow. And so, John, if you wanted to add anything to what Renée said, and Red, feel free to also jump in after John to add anything else about what we should know about the NGF fellow, the Next Generation Fellowship.
Yeah, I will just add very briefly that it is an opportunity to somewhat leverage our cultural capital, right? The people that we know, the things that we do know as well. It's a space for a shared learning exchange, right? We may come in with some technical things that we'll elaborate on, but it's also a space for individuals to begin defining what that looks like for their communities. What it's going to look like for their coalition or collaborative. And or I've even seen individuals that are like, you know what, I think I want to start my own nonprofit, and this is the way I'm going to go about doing it. So it's the space to I want to say flex your muscles in a sense, and or develop some other muscles that may help you just be able to be fully fortified within the movement. And not saying that we're going to figure it all out right there, right? But it may be that chispa that some people need to spark and continue to fuel the flames of passion that they feel towards the movement. And I have seen numerous fellows get opportunities as a result of being right there as well too. Like you stated, we've taken a couple on as staff. We've been able to connect some people to some other people, in which they were able to get additional fellowships and or continue to advance their learnings, and or like just did something really cool within the fellowship and were like, you know what, I'm going to take that, I'm going to build upon that. Or they brought something in and it allowed that to be extended and shared with others.
Yeah, like I feel like both John and Renee, like, hit it pretty on the point. Like I feel like it's been a space for me, like the years that I was in it, just to like develop like your skills as a person and really elevate the skills that you already have, and really push you to think on like, you could really do a lot of things as like an individual in policy and government. And like I had no idea, but I soon learned that like, there's just certain ways, certain avenues that you could talk to, district supervisors, county by county assembly members, and how to push a bill. And I think also kind of what John like pressed on was like, using our culture, being informed about like culture consciousness, you know kind of that restorative justice type thing of where like we should like be looking to grow but not to like punish people. And like I already knew it, but I think it really put it in like a very like realistic framework sense.
Yeah. Just a real quick before I get to this next question. Basically like the history, right? This is going to be for you, John. But I wanted to ask Red, real quick. How did you hear about NGF? And maybe like what really like made you like spark that interest, right? It's like what's NGF? What were you guided towards it, or they just a little breakdown on that.
Right. Honestly, I kind of forgot. Like I either got an email or a message on GroupMe about it. Um I was part of Underground Scholars already after I got out. Underground Scholars is going in its like first year, which is college student organization on UC campuses that like work to build resources and spaces for formerly incarcerated and system impacted people and students, and so I think it was on there, and I kind of like, it was really funny because I kind of like looked at it and I was just like like, I mean, I don't think I'll get in, but like I just might as well just try it. And then like they picked me and I was like, oh, like thank you, like and like I didn't really know what to expect. And a little more of that, like I also wanted to kind of like press on the fact that with NGF, like it's also like, yeah, I think also like John said it too, is just like connecting and not even like meeting opportunities, but like I guess like just connecting and meeting with people and building that connection. Like soon after that, I met a homie named Sway that was also a Next Generation Fellowship 2019, 2020. And then after the first session, about a month later, he met Fidel, which was also part of UCR's Underground Scholars in a participatory defense like forum. And like I was like, oh, like Sway, and then like it's just crazy, like it's just everyone's connected and we all met, and I was just like, oh, this is like we're all in the movement, so yeah, I really didn't know what it was. I didn't know what they meant by Next Generation. And now I do that. Like I'm gonna keep pushing for the next generation.
Yeah, most definitely, right. And shout out to Sway, right? That's the little homie right there. That's the brother, cool dude right there. So the next question, John, if you want to take it away, right? And then Renee, if you feel you want to add something, just go ahead and jump in. So how did this MILPA and CJCJ collaboration came about?
I'll go back a little bit into the history as well too. Like I stated earlier, the initial phases of us organizing and coming together as just a few people in the neighborhood that were calling ourselves MILPA. At that point in time, I think we were referring to ourselves as the Masehuales Institute for Leadership and People's Advancement, right? Really getting like kind of radical or revolutionary with it. And throughout that time, we're having these meetings in like the back of the ACFA, the Alice House Center for the Fine Arts, and just really strategizing around what we should do. We should have a town hall forum. We should invite people down. And as we started doing that, we started gaining a little bit of the eyes from people. We started building connections as well too with other organizations within inside of the community. Building healthy communities, working with them as well too, having them support us. And along with that came the support of the California Endowment as well too. So, we got a little bit of eyes on us, and we received an initial investment to a small investment to kind of like just give us little stipends for our time, right? And to stipend out other people. And one of the individuals who was working with us, Tenoch Ortiz at that time, he had received a fellowship from CJCJ. So he used to go up there like every couple weeks or every week to San Francisco and like learn from Brian and the people in CJCJ. And he'd come back and teach us about it. And it was like, man, these are the things that they're talking about up there. And we started going to city council meetings. We started going to board of supervisors meetings. And throughout that process, we started having more conversation and communication with CJCJ. and them lacing us up on like, you need to get into the Board of State and Community Corrections, the BSCC up in Sacramento, and also make sure that you're a part of that community corrections. I think it's the CCPOA or CCP or something like that, that every county is supposed to have one, right? That focuses on local community and corrections. And you can be a part of that. So people telling us like, hey, join this, go to that. CJCJ was really helping us out with some of the strategy, in particular, Brian Goldstein, and it was this point in time where the Prop 47 initiative was getting ready to get passed. People were organizing, getting signatures, and we had a couple town hall forums in Monterey County, in Seaside, in Salinas, I believe in Soledad, Greenfield, maybe even King City, I'm not positive. But we had a few of them, and Brian came through and spoke at several of them, and illustrated the need, and how this is actually a good thing, and kind of dissipated some of the fear that was surrounding Prop 47, and even spoke at some of our Board of Supervisors meetings. So we established a relationship, and we would run into each other up at the Capitol, at the what is it, I forget what the particular convening is, but it happens annually, and people are there passing out NGF flyers now. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there's been a long history and a huge, I want to say, leveraging of skill sets and strengths to continue this collective pursuit of justice.
I think John, laid out the history really beautifully, but I joined CJCJ, with Brian Goldstein and our team a few years ago. And so it's been really amazing to come in at a time when I see that collaboration continuing to grow. I think NGF is just really one of the highlights of the work I do at CJCJ, because it gives us a chance to collaborate, across organizations, and to just build this thing from the ground up, recognizing that needs change year after year. The first year that we did NGF is not the way it looked in years since, and it's definitely not going to be the way it looks this year. We're thinking through ways to really utilize the virtual platform for all it is. So it's not, just what we're missing as far as in person, but really what we're gaining with it being a new platform and a new way to connect. So yeah, we continue to collaborate outside of NGF too, and I think that helps keep it strong, that we are always working on bills together, BSCC, the Board of State and Community Corrections, advocacy, and we've got all these different touch points between the organizations. And that helps us connect fellows into each of those spaces as well.
I just noticed I didn't say anything about the NGF. I talked a lot about the CJCJ MILPA partnership, but the way I'll just explain it very briefly, and others can scold me later if they don't feel that was right. But I really feel like we've learned a lot from one another, CJCJ and MILPA, and I feel like this collaborative, this next generation fellowship is a space where we share what we've learned mutually from one another. And we thought about it like, how do we extend this to the state, and offer people the opportunity to not come in here and learn from us because we're the ultimate experts or anything like that, but peep it out and see if it may be something that's worth adopting for themselves, and or picking and pulling certain things. So, we're one that's like, hey, if we got something that we feel is working, we're not going to hoard the blessings. We're going to try to share them. So I think that's how this NGF really came about. And of course, obviously having the support of, places like the Sierra Health Foundation, the California Endowment,
Yeah, beautiful. Thank y'all for sharing. And it just speaks to the fact that we all have something to teach. We all have something to learn. We're working in reciprocal relationship with each other's. And that's the beautiful part about the movement. It could be really hard. It could be really draining, but there's a whole bunch of people that are involved in the movement work and wanting to make their communities a better place in different levels, as artists, as business people, what have you, right? And so this next question, we're going to start off with you, Red, but then feel free to jump in afterwards, Renee, and then John, if y'all have any additional thoughts, ideas. But what are some of the main concepts? And maybe they've already been mentioned, right? You've already mentioned some of them. But what are the main concepts, ideas, leadership skills that fellows, that particularly that you gain from NGF, but that maybe other people can gain from being able to apply to NGF?
I think the very first one that like really stuck with me and really helped me along the way was like moving at the speed of trust. Um, and that like it resonated with me. It meant a lot. You know, sometimes like it's hard trusting other people. It's hard trusting yourself other times. And yeah, that was like one skill that like, you know, like you don't have to move always at such a fast pace. Like you can take it one step at a time, and we'll like eventually like all get there. This is the important part, is that like if you're starting, like then that's where you need to be, like, you know, like because if you don't start, like when, you know, where are you gonna be? So that was like very important concept to me, in building relationships and building trust with others. I remember like I was very shy like the very first session that we had. I'm a very like kind of backseat like listening person at first, but sooner or later like I grew more comfortable with everyone. I was willing to like, you know, be friends with everyone, and kind of like build those relationships, and do that even within like, you know, my everyday life of, you know, how am I gonna approach this person, whether they're like a person of power, like, or like a decision maker, or if they're just like some other person that like being a community organizer and like reaching out to youth. I talked to these two kids like selling candy outside of the Walmart, and it was like, you know, like like am I gonna like really do this right now? Like I was just trying to get some lettuce for my rabbit, and I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna give them a flyer, like tell them about it. And then it went great. Like I messaged them the link, and hopefully they show up. Bought some candy from them, and it was apparently for autism awareness, so that was dope. Um, Other things that I learned is connecting with people, kind of other like health methods, and not even it like wasn't only just through NGF, but I also got introduced to other spaces, where we kind of like before the meeting starts, we honor the 4 directions. Actually, yeah, I did learn that in NGF too. Like, but I wasn't doing it myself until I got into other spaces. Like, man, like, you know, I should do that. Like that. It was a very like ground thing. And then like, shout out to the other homie Israel, that he also invited me to a circular on Mondays, and he like we all like kind of got together, kind of like got to know one another, each other, broke down the 4 directions in a very like more concrete thing. It's kind of, you know, just sharing gratitude, um, with the earth, with space. Um, yeah, like I feel like even though I'm not indigenous, like that it really like resonates with me, and like, you know, it's not that like I'm appropriating, but I just like really appreciate it. I would say other things, because I learned a lot, like honestly, just like believing more in myself. I think it was just very empowering, all of it in general. So yeah, thank you.
I feel like I talked a lot. Renee, do you want to give like a couple specifics or maybe technical things? Because I'll fly around in the plane for a little bit.
Yeah, I can share a little bit. You know, I think that we've talked. I'm trying to think about where to fill in the gaps, because Red kind of shared a really big part of it, which is the community building aspect, and just how much those connections carry with you, you know, in your movement work. Something that I think is really profound about NGF is that we generally, you know, it's for emerging leaders, but people are coming in with entirely different skill sets. You might be, you know, needing some support on technical skills, but you're really engaged in the community, or you might be in school taking classes, building up your knowledge there, or you might be further in your career. And I think NGF, because we don't just focus on the relationship of facilitator to fellow with teaching, but we focus on fellow to fellow teaching as well. Just having those communal conversations, making sure people are able to engage with it fully. That's, I think, a really important part of the fellowship, because it makes it different every year. You know, whether regardless of age or any other metric of where you might be on your path, we've got people at all points in the spectrum. And yeah, I think that, the opportunities for advocacy partnerships that come out of it are important. Um, a lot of that might happen at the state level, but some of that, can just, you know, quite simply be a couple of the fellows or maybe a former fellow is in a certain geographic area. We make the connection that they're doing similar work and are able to help foster that. But a lot of it, I think, can be summed up in what John said about the fact that we don't want to hoard the gifts that we've got, and the knowledge that is growing in NGF. So some of the opportunities that come out of it for people are opportunities to connect with media sources and to write op-eds, to write to write publications that we can support them in the development of. Every fellow in NGF does an independent project, and that can be that's really it varies person to person. So some people might be thinking long term, I want to start a nonprofit. Others might be thinking, I want to write an opinion piece and get it published. Regardless of what that project is, you get mentored throughout it, you get accountability partners with other fellows, and we carry you through those initial steps of those goals. So it's a really good place to kind of come in with your goals and get the support that you might not have otherwise.
And I'll just add, obviously some platform skill development, learning how to stand up in front of people, becoming comfortable with yourself in front of people. I'll speak from my personal experience. It wasn't the most easy thing to stand in front of a crowd or to walk up to a podium at a microphone and be ready to have that thing shut off on you in 60 seconds or 3 minutes, whatever the time frame may be, and make sure that you're driving home your point. So there's some emphasis on tangible things that people can do while pursuing advocacy, right? And I think also learning where you may be able to fit into the movement and understanding that we want unity. We don't want uniformity. We want people to be able to be their true selves within this movement and appreciate every component of your totality. So we've had people that are, like Renée said, different projects, and I think back on a woman, I won't say her name because I haven't asked her, but she had shared that, before I came into here, I didn't really think that my skill set was relevant to any of this, but now I see how I can use my art, how I can use some visuals, and how I may be able to even use some spoken word to advocate for the people and to, speak for myself as well too, because that's part of the process, being able to have your own palabra and own it. And yeah, I also want to say, just having some cultural awareness, acceptance, and understanding as well. Because when we say culture, we may be referring to our spirituality or our practices, but it's also, the way people grow up, the way people live, the things they adopt, and communication as well, strategic messaging, and how we even use certain things of ourselves. Like my necklace is a way of communicating. My shirt is the way I communicate, and it's all right. Different people may be sending different messages, but the thing is, how do we decipher the code and be willing to have that share space and have other people be able to stand in their dignity while we're standing in ours as well?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. It's next generation building leadership. It's awesome. And I just want to highlight something that Red said. Moving at the speed of trust, right? And that just really resonates because one of our elders, uncles, he recently, me dijo, hey, we gotta slow down. People get sick because they move too fast. The spirit's all discombobulated. Your body, your spirit, your mind, and your soul is moving on in different four directions. It's like, damn, we gotta bring it in, hold it in, and slow down. Yeah, gracias for that. And just coming to the last and final question. And this is it's like a call to action. And we'll go around también. We'll start off with Red, and then Renee, and then John can take it, final it, right? So what's your call to action for the youth of Salinas, the Bay Area, and the respective counties of which you work from?
For sure. Yeah. When you said like Salinas and like the Bay Area, I was like, oh man, like I don't know, I don't live there, but But like in a general message, like I feel like what's super important, like just today and to, you know, like during all these times is like really like love yourself, believe in yourself, and really believe that like you could keep changing every day. Like you're just not gonna be the person that you are uh at that at like this single moment, but like you keep evolving, you keep changing, um and really like, you know, believe in yourself, like move with love. um and I like say that like very meaningfully. You know, I think also like a concept that we were going over um was like, you know, violence and nonviolence and those type of things. um you know, like violence is can be like a useful tool when like you do it out of love, like protecting one another. You know, make sure you're safe. um Riverside County specifically, uh that's where I'm broadcasting from right now. Uh, there is going to be a call to action tomorrow, actually, for the homie Ernie Solano that was killed by police brutality. Um, and basically, we want like a thorough investigation from the DA and to actually get those sheriffs to be put accountable and have murder charges on them, because like right now, like the DA hasn't been doing anything. So if you're in Riverside County, or like if you're listening to this from anywhere, follow Riverside All of Us or None, which is also another organization that part of, and look for that call to action to call the DA, call the local sheriff's department, um, and you know, like really like use your voice, so we can get like accountability for the sheriffs and like justice for any. Yep, thank you.
I can share as well. I think the first thing that comes to mind is not only San Francisco youth, but I just think in general, something that's been on my mind is thinking about conserving energy and how that doesn't mean stopping, or, you know, completely hanging back, but like if you're on a long hike, you know, I like hiking and whatnot. If you're on a long hike, conserving energy might be slowing down your pace, or it might be eating some of your food, lightening your load. But it doesn't mean stop walking. And I think that right now there are just like a lot of distractions, at all levels, and people are experiencing so much personally, politically, and all around us, and that can feel really chaotic. So something that I just really urge youth to do, and everyone who's listening right now, is focus on the actions that you can take and forgive yourself for the ones that you can't. Recognize that there's only each step you can at every point in the road. Um, but in a specific way, you know, thinking about some of the areas we work in, there's a lot of efforts being done locally to particularly change the way that the youth justice system is functioning. There's some big moves happening at the state level. They're planning on closing DJJ, closing the state youth facilities. And what that's going to mean is a lot more power at the local level to make sure that kids are getting what they need, young people are getting the services they need. And now is the time for us to be taking collective action to make sure that this transition happens in a way that's genuinely going to benefit communities and not just build up a new harmful system. So that's something I you know, think everybody should tap into local advocacy, whether it's connecting with those of us here on the MILPA show, or with others in your neighborhood. But I think that's one tangible way to move forward as well.
And I'll just close by saying, you know, take care of yourselves, be safe, you know, protect yourself, your family, your household, your community. And, you know, if you have the opportunity to become engaged with something, you know, tap in, try to be a part of the change. You know, there's a wave that's riding right now, and it's coming like a tsunami. We could either get freaking crushed and washed away with it, or we could pull out the surfboard and try to learn how to ride that thing, right? So I'd encourage you to learn how to ride it. And also, you know, whatever it may be that you feel you're passionate about, whether it be school, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a graphic designer, you want to be a rapper, whatever it may be, always have an eye and a mind for how you can give back, to the place that you came from. You know, I hear a lot of people saying that, you know, when I graduate or when I turn 18 or when I have the chance to, I'm leaving this place because I hate it here. And I encourage you to think about why you may hate it there, right? And what situations may have created what you've come to hate. And how can we begin to unravel that and start to like put things in place that are going to allow our people to not change, but be restored to what they were truly meant to be in this world. Palabra.
Beautiful. Bernie, any final words?
You know, I just want to thank and appreciate y'all for you know, pulling up and speaking on this this great opportunity, right? And those youth, you know, that are listening, watching, you know, that, you know, you don't know if you want to do it or not. Like, hey, give it a try. Why not? You know, hey, it's an opportunity to meet people all across the state, you know, and you know, again, you know, just there's a lot of things going on in the country, in our local communities, right, in our families, within ourselves, you know, that we might not have control over, you know, but there's certain things that we do, and it's good to you know, find like-minded people that been there and done that, right, and ask questions, you know, ask questions, and también, you know, just ask questions to the elders, you know, and speak to your moms, pops, grandmas, grandpas, you know, ask questions about where you come from, you know, where do they come from, you know, things like that, you know, information is, you know, all information is good information because it's just, it gives you more knowledge, you know, and you know, I just want to say that much, and you know, gracias to everybody, Rosaura.
Órale pues muchas gracias to our guests. Y'all are amazing. You're doing amazing work. Please tap in with NGF, CJCJ, MILPA in order to get engaged. And I don't think, I feel like John hit it on the head. Like, just take care of yourself, be, you know, take care of your family, treat yourself with love, dignity, and respect. Like, why not? It's free, right? Like, why not just do it? So con eso, thank you all for joining us. And this concludes our first episode of 2021. So yeah, thank y'all. Peace.